we are. Hey everybody, welcome to my first live in quite some time. So this is Reed with Keller Williams and Whidbey Island Living. So today I wanted to introduce Mary Himes. I sell real estate for a living, and everybody that buys a house needs homeowners insurance, and so I wanted to bring in. Not click that button, and there's Mary Himes she is Mama Bear Insurance Lady. I love that name you came up with. Have you always been Mama Bear Insurance Lady?
I have since I started my business.
Okay. Did you use that when you were in insurance before you moved here?
No, it came up with once I went out on my own, talked to a friend and over dinner, and she said, "You're such a mama bear." Yeah, and I'm an insurance lady. So then it just kind of meshed together, and we started laughing, and then that's where it came from. And
Well,
um,
I like it.
it
I mean, it
stuck.
seems like Mama Bear. A Mama Bear looks out for her cubs, and insurance, you're looking out for your clients. So it seems like it really comes together.
It does.
Okay. So Mary, how long have you been doing insurance here on Whidbey Island?
It's going to be 6 years this year.
Okay.
I've been here. Going to be 6 years that I've been here. Doing insurance and over doing insurance on Whidbey Island, and overall about 23 years experience.
Okay. Awesome. So, and your Mama Bear Insurance Lady, but your office is what, Safe Harbor Insurance Agency?
Safe Harbor Agency is
Agent.
my office, and because there is another one in Gig Harbor called Safe Harbor, but Safe Harbor Agency in Oak Harbor.
Okay. Good. And at the end, I've got some information put up. We can put up your contact info on there. So, I originally was going to come up with some questions to ask you about insurance, but in with the current stuff going on in the in media, the ChatGPT is all the rage. So I thought, we would just ask ChatGPT what, maybe what people want to know. So here, I'm going to switch over here. I've got this app on my let's see here. And it switched to the wrong screen. No, don't do that. There we go. Nope, never mind. I'm just going to go back here. Okay, we'll just do it this way. And so, I typed the right keyboard. Insurance. Homeowners insurance questions. And let's see what.
1. What types of homeowners insurance are available? 2. What does homeowners insurance typically cover? 3. How much does homeowners insurance usually cost? 4. What kind of discounts are available for homeowners insurance? 5. How can I find the best homeowners insurance policy for me? 6. Are there any exclusions or limitations to homeowners insurance? 7. What happens if I have an uninsured loss? 8. What should I look for when comparing different homeowners insurance policies? 9. What kind of deductible should I choose for my homeowner's insurance policy? 10. What other important information do I need to know about homeowner's insurance?
I guess in the future, I'll remember to, you have to tell ChatGPT just what you want. I think 5 questions would have been enough. But let's go ahead and start off with number 1. Mary, what types of homeowners insurance are available? Because, I think most people, they buy a house and, we get them into escrow, and then their escrow says, hey, where do you want your homeowners insurance? And they pick up the phone and call somebody. So what should they be looking for? What types of homeowners insurance are available?
So depends on the use of the home. So if it's going to be the primary dwelling, you need what is called an HO3 policy. And that is if you are going to be the owner and live in the home. If you are buying a home for an investment property, and you are not going to live in the home and you're going to rent it out, then you need a fire dwelling policy.
So if somebody buys a house and they live in it for a while and they decide they're going to move out and rent it, they need to talk to their insurance agent first.
They definitely need to talk to their agent first. Um, I know that there are a lot of people who just say, "Oh, I have homeowners insurance, and now I'm going to Airbnb my house," and that's not covered without you talking to the carrier. A lot of carriers do not cover Airbnb, especially when you're not living in the home. So the home has to be rewritten. The policy has to be rewritten into a policy that will cover for renters.
And when you say not covered, I mean, that means so somebody, you have an Airbnb tenant in there and they fall down the stairs and break their back, and your homeowner's insurance is going to say exactly what?
Um, were you living in the home? No. Were you renting the home out? Yes. Not covered.
Yeah. Okay. That's definitely serious stuff.
It is. I know we have on Whidbey rentals and homeowners renting out their homes in the hundreds or thousands of homes as Airbnbs, especially as the season comes for vacationing. And they are not taking the opportunity or the time to follow up with their insurance agents to go through the hassle of getting a new policy. So they are continuing with their regular homeowners policy. And it's kind of like that thing, they'll never know. They'll never know. They'll never know until there's a claim.
Until you
There is a myth.
find out that you'll never get anything.
Right, and it is such an exposure because these are your assets. These are your life savings. These are, the homes are your future, right? And for a slight inconvenience of updating or changing or making corrections, you may lose it all.
Yeah. Well, that's what people really got to be careful. You pay for insurance for a reason, but it surely isn't worth paying for it if you don't have the right policy. It's not going to cover you.
Yes, exactly.
So, okay. Well, let's see what our next question is. ChatGPT says, "What does a homeowner's insurance typically cover?"
Typically, homeowners insurance covers your dwelling, other structures on the property, loss of use, personal liability, and your deductibles.
Okay.
So the dwelling is the structure of your home. Other properties would be a shed, a pool, gazebo, pergola, deck, if it's not attached to the house, fences, those types of things. Loss of use is if there is a loss on your home, fire or water damage, something that is a covered claim that requires you to live away from the home while it's being repaired. That is loss of use, because most of the time you're going to have to continue to pay the mortgage, but you will have to pay rent somewhere else. So that
Right.
is covered for that. And then there is personal liability, which is if someone sues you for slander, um, they fell on your property, if they stepped in a hole,
Mhm.
you invited them onto your property, or you had an open property where it didn't seem like there were no restrictions for them entering the property. They fall, they hurt themselves, they sue you. You have a party at your home and somebody falls down the stairs. Basically, the liability portion is covering for your negligence or someone accusing you of negligence. What a lot of people don't really realize is that insurance is your prepaid lawyer.
Right.
It's not even if you're guilty or not, or if it's just the defense itself is going to be costly, even if there's no fault on your part. So this is another reason why you should have homeowners insurance. It's
Yes.
the hidden part that nobody really thinks about, that comes up and says, "Oh, my lawyer cost me 300, thousands of dollars, and now I'm in debt." But if you had insurance, for the most part, if it's something negligible and attached to your home, then you would have had coverage, because the insurance carrier is in the business of also defending you.
Right. Yep. Yep. Okay. So let me see here. Next question is, how much does homeowners insurance usually cost?
Last year, it cost $400 less. Post pandemic, with supply chain issues, labor issues, and the cost of just doing business overall, there has been an increase between 25 to 40% in carrier fees, or just rates. So a home that was $700 to insure last year, at $310,000, and this year $340,000, could cost you $1,100.
Wow, that's pretty substantial increase.
There are substantial increases. Part of that is because during the pandemic, many carriers did not take on increases to accommodate um, state requests, and a lot of states did not allow um, carriers to take on rate increases during a national crisis. So there has been a lot of holding back, and carriers have experienced a high level of economic loss, and claims have been paid. And actually, the claims increased during the pandemic for homes. Car losses decreased because nobody was driving, but
Uh-huh.
homeowner claims increased because people were home now. Kids
Okay.
were home, leaving water on and overflowing down the stairs. And people were finding things, oh, look at that, and calling and making a claim on things and not calling their agent. I always suggest, before making a claim, to call the agent, because just an inquiry can cost you on your next renewal. And so the costs are a combination of the increased rates, and then the claims, and then insured not knowing not to report a claim necessarily, if it's going to be, if your deductible is $500 and your repair is $750, and you file a claim so that they can pay $250 and you save $250, but that claim stays on chargeable, they're going to surcharge you for 5 years. So imagine that you're going to pay to get to save 250, but then your insurance is going to go up $250 more a year for 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I've learned in life is that the insurance companies always win. So,
Right. You're going to get, the insurance company's job is to indemnify you, to put you back where you were, not to enrich you, but to get you back to where you were.
right.
Um, and depending on when that happens, sometimes your the cost of doing so may be more costly to the insurance carrier. So they're going to pay, but then they're going to make it up on the back end. And I know that this is a sore point for many people, because the question is, well, why do I pay insurance? I always give the example that you're never going to pay $100,000 worth of premiums in your lifetime. Never. And in one loss,
Right.
I've seen a water, like not a fire, like water, like, oh, the water upstairs overflowed in the bathtub and went down the stairs into the kitchen and downstairs, and that's $150,000.
Oh yeah. I've had a
That was the
couple
repair.
of
That's not the part where
clients
they
that
left
had
it on.
water leaks. That water leaks can get real expensive real fast. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And so that's the part where, the cost of insurance, and trying to balance that with the carriers and the economy And that is really why you need to speak to the agent, so that if the agent is really doing their job, they're going to look through the policy to either find ways to move things around, increase deductibles, talk to you about what you need and want versus what, the bottom line is cost, but then there's also the bottom line of exposure.
Right.
So how much people are like, how much does it cost? And my question to you is, how much can you afford to lose?
Yep. 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 Okay. So let's see. Our next question from ChatGPT is, what kind of discounts are available for homeowners insurance? Because I
So
definitely
discounts
want a
that are
discount.
available. Well, if they're bundling, you have your auto insurance with the same carrier. So those discounts are about 10 to 20%. If you go home and auto, you will get a discount on your auto and you will get a discount on your home. So those are ways to get discounts. There are fire alarm discounts. If you have a home alarm, or everyone has deadbolts on their doors, and everyone should have smoke alarms. Those are additional discounts. Um,
You
and
said
then if you upgrade,
detectors, or do you mean a monitored alarm system?
the monitored alarm system is a higher discount than just a detector. So then there's three levels. Local, if your alarm goes to the city and it rings, if someone comes out, there's levels of discounts for that. And then there's the lowest amount of discount, which is easy, is just to have the deadbolts and the fire alarm, smoke detectors in your
Smoke
house.
detectors. Yep.
Um, those are the lowest level of discount that are automatic. And then when you start to pay for monitored systems, then there's another level of discount. There is a discount if you have a newer roof. There is a discount for, um, let's see, sometimes some carriers have discounts if you're an older person. One of the carriers will give you discount if you're retired. So there's some varying discounts amongst
They give
carriers, but
you just tired?
to that one, just
Can you
tired?
just for being tired? I mean, not retired. I mean,
No, that would
right.
be most of us. That would be too many discounts. But yeah, those are just standard ones inside of a policy. Bundling with a home and auto, your standard protection discounts with the deadbolt and smoke alarms. Then there's the newer roofs, which um, the roof discounts start to, once the roof gets older, then it starts to be more costly. You have no roof discount. It actually starts to raise the rate because the risk becomes higher.
Okay. Well, that's an important one to remember.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially if the roof is more than, say, when it starts to get 20 years old or more, then there becomes a
Premium.
actual cash value depending on the carrier. We won't repair the roof at the replacement cost. We'll do it at actual cash value, which might be $10,000 versus $20,000.
Right. Right. Yeah. So do they look at anything like older electrical systems? Because like the roof, I mean, the roof obviously they're giving a discount because roofs lead to
You're not
water,
going
which is expensive.
that the electrical systems are an underwriting issue. If the electrical systems are not 120 or 110 or higher, then in the standard policy, these are potentially uninsurable. Tube and knob are not acceptable. Aluminum, things that used to be like cause fires, sparking,
Mm-hmm.
blowouts. If you don't have um, an electrical board where you have um, protections where the protection surges, those
Yep.
are,
Guys.
you're going to be in a rough spot trying to get standard coverages. And when you get out of the standard market, then your rate goes up. So there's people that do have homes, like the specialty homes I've run across are, this is an organic home made out of all organic material, and we've made it with mud and adobe, things like that, and that those don't really fly. Even it's it's good for the environment, but the carriers have a problem with knowing how to rate that kind of home, and even people that use firewood. Do you have a do you have a fire fireplace that burns wood? There's a lot of questions that go along with that. Was it professionally installed? When was it last maintenance? When, how often do you use it? So these underwriting questions start to knock down, or either they knock down the opportunity to cover, or they increase the opportunity to raise the rate because
Right.
of the, especially here on Whidbey, because there is a high number of homes that have wood um, wood
Burning
stoves
stoves and
or wood
yep,
burning.
yep.
And while I've been here, there have been at least 3 fires from chimney fires with wood chimneys,
Yep.
not just little fires, big fires to the
Yeah.
ground.
That's why we always have those things when people sell houses. At least we have to get them inspected, get them cleaned. But I think a lot of people don't get those chimneys cleaned as often as they should because
Right.
the creosote built up in there, and then it lights up and burns really hot.
And I think that's one of the, it's lovely to live here, but there is also a cost of doing so as well. You just have to make sure you take all the precautions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you take all the precautions and you have everything in order, then insurability is not a factor. But you have to report it properly to the carrier in the event that there is a loss and you don't experience any financial hardship connected with that. And that's the importance of telling the truth when writing your insurance, or giving all the correct information, and making sure that
Right.
your agent is also providing the correct information to the carrier, because ultimately the insured is the one who is going to experience the financial hardship or loss in the event that things weren't done properly.
So Mary, do you think what percentage of people do you think check in with their insurance agent, on a regular enough basis to stay on top of all these things?
Percentage?
Or, well, I mean, do you think
I
most people
think
check in
one per,
regularly?
1% of all insureds probably check in with their agent, and maybe 10% of all agents maybe reach out for an annual review. Um, it is one of the things that retention, or just making sure that your insureds are on top of things, even if it's just a phone call or a card. A lot of times, and during these times, people send the email. Carrier agencies will send out emails, or um, bigger carriers send out what they call an insurance review,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which they want you to fill out. And people get really frustrated with that. Like, I don't want to fill it out. And so you could send out, 100 and get back 10. And there are whole departments and corporate places that send out these documents and have people calling and requesting the documents back for follow up. But I'm gonna, just in general, what does your chat GPT say?
What for the next question? Let's see. Are there any exclusions or limitations to insurance, homeowners insurance? I think that's what you and I kind of talked about before. Um,
Mm-hmm.
exclusions and limitations. I mean, you talked about the Airbnb thing, but I mean, off the top of my head, having a home business, some kinds of home businesses, I would assume, are not covered unless you have insurance that covers that.
Some types of businesses that if you have a home business that you really need to make sure that you have coverage, specifically on Whidbey Island, home studios for artists that people open up their homes every year for the Whidbey Art Walk. Are you covered properly for that? Um,
Mhm.
Masseuses that have massage therapy on their premise. Um, you have yoga coaches or dance studios on premise as well. Those are all things that should be talked to with your carrier and agent because in many instances these may not be covered because of the foot traffic on premise. Um, there are exclusions about the amount of foot traffic and types of coverage. There's um, specific questions about that initially. And a lot of times, what happens, people buy their homes and none of this was happening. They didn't have any of those things when they bought the home and got their primary insurance policy. 10 years down the road, same insurance policy, but now they've decided to start a business from their home and they just go business as usual, um, and fail to advise the carrier, or the agent doesn't follow up, or the people don't fill out that questionnaire, right? So those are the exposures that are definitely excluded off the bat. There are exclusions for the Airbnbs. If you have a standard homeowner policy, as a norm, short-term rentals of a property are excluded. You can rent a room in your house that you live in, but you cannot short-term rental advertise for a regular homeowner policy. You need to get a different type of policy for that. And that's something that people really here on Whidbey should really remedy.
Well, sounds like we need to get the word out
There's
to.
there's so many. I know that there are so many homeowners who maybe don't even live here and rent out their home full time, Airbnb, and just have a regular homeowner's policy.
Yeah.
And for fear of inconvenience or I don't want to pay more money, they don't make the difference. So they don't make the change and or don't even ask the question. Sometimes it's just a question and it may be covered. It's just that the carrier needs to know about it. It may cost you $50, but you're going to make that money back on your first rental.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So let's see. Next question is, what happens if I have an uninsured loss?
If the loss is uninsured, then it's out of your pocket. And that depends on what kind of loss it is. So for instance, um, what people think is covered, going back to that, you open your closet and then there's water all in the closet with mold. That is not necessarily covered because your coverage on your homeowner's insurance says sudden expulsion of water is covered, but slow leaks and rot and mold are not a standard coverage. So if that is not covered on your policy and you open a closet and it's moldy and wet and the subfloor is messed up, that is all your pocket. And it's also going to be a claim if you call your carrier as well, because even though they didn't pay out, they are still going to note the damage to the property in the event that you may call for another claim later down the road that may be attached to that claim. So they'll
Yep.
deny that too.
And the other
So,
side of that is, because there's a claim on it, whether insurance pays for it or not, if somebody's buying, when somebody goes to sell their home, the new buyer goes to get homeowners insurance and those records are available, and the insurance company can come back and they may want proof that the repairs were done properly.
yes,
So
yes,
yeah,
they do. That
so that's
is
why
perfect
taking
example.
shortcuts is not the get the right insurance, and if you have a repair, get it done properly, and hire
Yes.
a contractor to do it. So, all right, let's see. What should I look for when comparing different insurance policies?
When you are comparing different insurance policies, um, policies are written at a standard. They're pretty standard. What you want to look for is additional endorsements that give you coverage for things that are not covered in a standard policy. For instance, the water seepage that we just talked about, there are endorsements to add on to your policies that will cover that um, unforeseen incidents. But you have to purchase the additional endorsement for that. There's um, coverage for your utility lines that go from the street to the home. People don't realize that the city or the county don't cover the utility lines on your property, especially the sewer lines or water lines that come up. So you should really look at that. Um, the comparisons on those types of things, what kind of coverage you have if you're out of the country. Is it blanket coverage? Normally the wording is that you're covered anywhere in the world for your personal property, but you just want to make sure what that means, anywhere in the world, and what property is covered and how much is it covered for. Is it covered for the same as if it was in my house, or is it a reduced amount of coverage because I was away from my house?
Ah, okay, okay.
So so a lot of times people say I have to get storage and I have to put stuff in storage, right? And the storage company needs proof of insurance. And people put stuff in storage and say it catches on fire, and they put like $50,000 of stuff in storage. Well, in the policy contract, and the standard policy contract across the board, all carriers, um, your personal property is covered at 10% away from the premises.
Ah,
So
that's
now instead of 50,000, you've got 5,000, right? So you want
mm-hmm.
to make sure that you're, if you have to store items away from the property, are those items going to be covered the same as if they were in your home? Usually there's an endorsement to add that. So
Right.
when people are looking at price and then they start chopping it down, the reason for the review is maybe initially you don't have storage, you don't have these things, but life changes, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
those annual follow-ups, have you gotten a storage unit? Have you taken on a business? Have you taken on renters? Do you rent every week? Are you out of the home? These questions are really important for a homeowner to understand their exposures so that they can make the right decisions, right? The insurance agent is not in the position to make the decisions for the individual, but you have to pose the question so that the homeowner can make the decisions that is best for their families.
Yeah. Well, and aren't there other things like, I mean, I think there's limits on jewelry and computers and guns. I mean, your
Oh,
policy only insures
inside the
an amount, and you
inside
get into, or you have a lot of tools because of you getting a new career, and now you've got, $60,000 worth of tools sitting in your garage. That's not
well,
covered by
even that,
regular policy.
well, depends on, the tools are
Oh,
covered under,
uh-huh.
everything is covered under the deductible. There are some items that are covered blanket on the policy that are like, say, jewelry standard. You had $2,500 coverage for jewelry, right? But once you get to the limit, then it's for to the deductible. So the deductible piece is because it's personal property, but now it's gone, and now you didn't document it. But I want to go back to the tools.
Mm-hmm.
Tools tools that are used in business are not covered the same as tools that you just have at home.
Right.
So tools used in business, if you're a handyman and you've got all these tools, but you don't have the proper insurance as a handyman for your business property, and you have a loss in your home, and you say, well, I'm a handyman and they stole all my stuff, The personal homeowner's policy does not cover it the way that it's minimal, maybe $1,200. It's a minimal amount. There are like you said, there are limits. There are policy limits that the carrier will not pay out. You have the ability to schedule things like tools, but not if they're used in work. You have the ability to schedule instruments, but not if they're used in work. You have the ability to schedule golf clubs and but not if they're used for work. You have the ability to schedule your jewelry items and then have the deductible apply for the coverage. It is important for all homeowners to document their possessions. I always say, you can take a video, a home video, or with your camera on your
Mm-hmm.
phone at this point, and you can actually just email them to yourself. Take photos of your house, inside your house, the flooring, and all your possessions, and just email them to yourself. The email will not go away. But people used to go, I'm going to put it on a hard drive or I'm going to put it in a safe. You don't have to do any of that because that's going to be in the fire.
Yep. Or you can put it on the cloud. I mean, if you have
Right.
an iPhone, or they're all your pictures go to iCloud, and you have a copy there. So
Right. And a lot of times people will they will stack their jewelry. Um, and then all of a sudden they'll have a lot of it and they'll say, well, I need to schedule this or I want this covered. If your appraisal is more than 2 years old, then a carrier will ask for a new appraisal. So it's better to schedule it early when you first buy it versus waiting down the road when you have to pay for another appraisal, because then another appraisal or an appraisal when it's older is going to become expensive.
so Mary, when you just clarification, you use the word schedule. You want to explain what that means? Because
That scheduling, I'm sorry. So scheduling means that you can take a specific item, a weapon, a piece of jewelry, and you want coverage for that item at um, the actual cash value. So say you have a weapon and you bought it from someone for $200, but it's actually like a $1,000 weapon. So you're going to schedule that for the $1,000 so that if it gets stolen, then you will get paid out the $1,000. There's no deductible when you schedule. So the scheduling foregoes the deductible and it is the full amount for the item that has been insured specifically.
so you're basically
Every
listing the exact item that you have, not saying, "Hey, I have a gun." You're saying, "Hey, I've got a Colt 45 1911, and it's worth
Yes,
$1,150 based on this information."
right. And a lot of times, depending on the carrier as well, if the limit is less than $10,000, you don't need an appraisal. But once it starts getting in the higher limits, then you're going to need an appraisal for that. So scheduling items, you can have them if it's an heirloom, something that you think is irreplaceable, or something that was hard to get. Like you're never going to get this item back again. It was a one of a kind. Things like that. There's
Yeah.
also blanket coverage for like costume jewelry where there is, you have really nice things, but they're not. Each piece is not worth more than like $200 or $300, but you can do a blanket up to 10 depending on the carrier. So there's coverages for those types of things too.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's to the deductible,
Well,
which
that
I
was
would want to when you get to your questions, we'll talk about the deductible as well.
yeah. Well, that's actually the very next question that ChatGPT came up with. What kind of deductible should I choose for my homeowner's insurance policy?
If you are starting out and you're just buying a home, my suggestion is to keep the standard $1,000 deductible. You don't have any claims. There's nothing counting against you, but you're not quite sure what it's like being a homeowner yet. But as you go along and you go 5 years and no claims, my suggestion, and depending on also your financial situation, if you can afford a 5,000 or more deductible, that is going to keep your rate lower. And any repairs, you would pay out of pocket up to the limit, simply because all claims are going to stay with you for 5 years. When we get to the claims part, carriers are currently non-renewing because of financial losses, and they are tightening up their underwriting. If you have had 2 claims in 3 years or 3 claims in 5 years, you may experience a letter from your carrier saying you are going to be non-renewed. So there are non-renewals that are right now.
It comes down to dollars and cents. So, yep,
It is.
yep.
But remember the numbers. It's 2 and 3 or 3 and 5. This is why call your insurance agent before you file a claim. Call your insurance agent to discuss the deductibles, because the deductibles range from $500 to $10,000. If you're a handyman and you're paying, $1,000 deductible, but you can do the repairs yourself and you can save, $300 or $400 a year because you took the higher deductible, take the higher deductible because you were going to do the work yourself anyway.
Right, right. Yep. So we're down to one last question, Mary. What other important? Oh, this will take a while. What other important information do I need to know about homeowners insurance? Now that's a catch-all, if I ever heard one.
First of all, you need to know that you should have your coverage based on what it is going to cost to rebuild your house, not the cost that it's like my house is worth $1 million. I should have $1 million in insurance. No, that is not. The market rate for your home is not the rebuild cost for the home. Those could be flipped. It could cost more to build your home than the value of the home. It could cost less to build it's going to definitely be less most of the time than the market value. So the average cost to rebuilding when I first moved here like 5-6 years ago, a 1,200 square foot home on Whidbey built from the ground up was about $250,000. That is now about $350,000. So that, and people are, and if you have insurance, I'll say this, if your insurance says your coverage is $250,000 plus 25% replacement cost, you are underinsured. I don't care. If your house literally has to be like 400 square feet to be covered for that, because the cost of goods has gone off the charts. The cost of wood, down to I can give you a report down to the little nails and connectors. Everything costs more money. The plastic, the metal, the synthetic, the wood, the roof, everything costs more money. And
Yeah.
so the cost to build a home is nothing. Um, I have one house here that there was a loss, and the house was covered for $450,000. And they had an additional 25% for replacement cost, but they also needed to live somewhere else for a year. They also needed to replace all their clothing and their personal property. At the end of the claim, after they fixed the house, put a new roof, everything, that claim closed at $895,000 for
Ooh.
one house, one
Wow.
house. And so, um, you need to make sure that you have the proper coverage, because if you are underinsured, the carrier is definitely only going to pay to the amount of the policy. And if you can't rebuild your house, you were saving money, but you weren't saving money.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want to do is after all that time of paying into your premiums, and then you have a claim and find out you need to pony up with $100,000 out of your pocket, which a lot of people
Yeah,
don't have grand sitting in the bank.
No, they don't. And it's really unfortunate, and you can kind of tell that in some instances when we drive around Whidbey, you may see a home, a nice home. People live in the home. They have, pretty good cars, every, family, and you'll see one side of the house is has no siding for a long time because they didn't have proper insurance.
Yep. Yep. Well, that's another thing. We talked about the insurance not covering those slow leaks. That's something else. I've seen a few of those that people need to pay attention to what's going on in the house and find those things when there is a catastrophe, when the leak starts, because
There,
that's no fun when their leaks been leaking for a long time and you don't know about it, and then you find out you're not covered at all. So
it
that's
it is important to take a walk around your home, your property. Keep debris away from the house. Even like walk around your house and tap the wood, even the around the window seals. If it looks discolored, that might be an issue. If you see, in your bathrooms, check the seals around your showers and your bathtubs, because even though if you see a discoloration, you don't see anything, there's no water sitting, you don't see it, but underneath it may be that there's water going under your home. You should have someone take get underneath and see if there's some water leaking under your house. Are there puddles or things like that? So you have to make, there's some responsibility to the homeowner that just take 5-10 minutes once every few months to walk around. And if you're an older person, have a handyman walk around just to make sure that you're okay, or a family member to do that. But if you're buying a home as well, those are also the things that you want to make sure about when you are buying the home. But if you're selling the home, realize that these are things. If you have a shade tree on one side of your house, that's the side where you're more than likely going to have the most moisture? Is there mold on that side? You want to make sure. Are you remediating annually to make sure that there's no organic items growing on your roof that can get underneath the the asphalt shingles and create some soft spot where you start to have a leak? Because the they're not going to replace the roof because there was a leak. They're just going to fix the leak. So these are types of things when people say, I have insurance, but you also have a responsibility to maintain the property, and that is also something that a carrier will look at. Did you maintain the property? Is the property well kept? And sometimes carriers are doing drive-bys at this time, looking at properties that are under contract with them. And if the property is not in order, you may get a letter in the mail
yep. Well,
saying,
they're looking out for their interests, and yeah, and we see a lot of that in real estate sales. Home inspectors find those things. That's I talk to sellers about checking all those things. Clearing the brush away from the side of the house. Don't stack your firewood against the side of the house. Um,
and those are things like rodents and people don't think about. But can I ask you a question, Reed?
sure.
As a realtor, when you are showing new homes, what are the concerns that the buyers are having when they're looking at the homes?
Well, most buyers are looking for a perfect home. So, and usually when you're looking at a home that somebody's already been living in for 10 or 20 or 50 years, they're not perfect. But the biggest things that are always, I think, kind of the same things insurance worries about, and that's what's the condition of the roof. How old's that roof? Plumbing, any plumbing leaks, and electrical stuff being up to code, and having GFIs in the kitchen and bathroom and stuff like that. And then they're looking for just wear and tear. And then, of course, always the whole critters in a crawl space or in the attic, rats, mice, birds, those little, the vents in the, for the ventilation for the attic, that if the screens come out of those and you get birds living up there and they're nesting, that's not a good thing. So those are all pretty common things that we see.
That's helpful for me as an agent because then I can understand what you guys, the realtors, are looking for when you're, for coverage. Because I do know that when you're helping your clients navigate through mortgages and things like that, that they're, because I'm an independent agent, I can look at various carriers.
Hmm.
So I have 14 different carriers to work with, and then finding out information about the realtor's client is going to be helpful about which carrier and how you look at that.
Which was going to be
Um,
the fit for them. Yep.
and sometimes it's like just having a short conversation with the buyers, because sometimes the buyers are just told me to get insurance, so they
Right.
don't know what to do with that, and they don't always know the questions, and sometimes they're also shocked with the rate because it's not renters, right? And how much it's going to
Yeah.
cost.
Oh,
One
yeah.
thing I will tell you as well is a lot of people that are buying homes in the future, especially we have the Navy here, those small claims that are filed on renters policies for lost, um, when the power goes out and you lost your food in the refrigerator, those those claims are stay with the person for 5 years. And when you go to buy a home, those claims pop up and count against you. That's about 300 more dollars a year in insurance
Wow.
because of, so that, because people were like, "Oh, the power was out for 5 days. My friend told me I could and you do. You get $500 for groceries that may or may not have all spoiled, and it stays on the file for 5 years. In 3 years you go buy a home and you find out that that claim that you even forgot about is popping up. And maybe
Wow.
you've done it 2 or 3 times. So guess what? Now you're not qualified properly to get homeowners insurance because you have 3 claims in
That
5 years.
is that's interesting. I number one never thought of filing a claim for that. Number one, and number two, didn't think wouldn't have thought it was covered. But
It's
that's
it's covered on
we
renters
all come
insurance.
from different perspectives. It's like I always
Hmm.
say. People always say people don't have common sense. Well, common sense is based on your common experiences, and we all have
Right.
different experiences. I never thought about that, and obviously other people do.
And I mean it's so minor that people are so shocked that, what? I just got growth. Yes, but the anything that a carrier pays out is considered a loss.
Right. Right.
If they paid
Yeah.
it, there was a loss. So it doesn't have a classification except if it's a catastrophe. The only time it doesn't count against you if it's a catastrophic area loss. And catastrophic means like life was shut down for a week or two and there was loss of life or loss of uh, revenue in the county or city,
Right.
a tornado. But think twice about filing those small claims that your friend told you to file. Call your
Yeah.
insurance agent
Just
first.
because you're covered doesn't mean it's necessarily a smart move in the long run. So yeah. So call your agent, and that's what Mary's here for. So Mary, hey, I said I thought we'd do the 20 or 30 minutes. We're at an hour.
Ah,
So thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me. I learned a few things, and I thought I got a pretty good idea on insurance, but I picked up a couple items from you there. So I'm sure a lot of people got some good information out of it. And I've got a contact information for Mary to come up here if anybody wants some more information. And Mary, any parting words before you venture off to the weekend?
you can follow me at Mama Bear Insurance Lady on Instagram and at Safe Harbor Whidbey on Instagram and on Facebook as well. And it's been a pleasure to be with Reed today and give out some information, and I hope it helped.
Well, there you go. And there's contact information for Mary and for myself. So anybody needs some information on insurance or buying or selling a house, there we are. And Mary, it's been a pleasure. We should do this again. I'm sure we'll find something. There's always more things to talk about. And you
There
have
is always to talk about.
a fabulous weekend.
You too. Thank you so much, Reed, and you have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Mary.